I used to be a courier ship, but now I think I'm Silverbolt.
Let me do what must be done.
Okay, here's a look at Transformers Age of the Primes Aerialbot Silverbolt. So here you can see what the front of the box looks like with the really nice artwork of Silverbolt in robot mode and in alt mode with his buddies Air Raid and Slingshot in a really nice background back in the golden age of Cybertron. And I just want to speak to, the artwork here. All this extra detail looks really, really nice. And if I want to continue doing Transformer artwork, I'm thinking about adding some of these nice detail. But because I'm all about the, cartoon aesthetics. That's why my artwork, I keep it really simple to kind of capture the cartoon aesthetics. But anyways, I just wanted to share that real quick. And the back of the box, you could see you get your typical product images, robot mode, alt mode, the combined alt mode with the parts forming pieces for Superion, and this parts forming piece for Superion that you could turn into this shield gun. And here is showing you how to attach the aerial bots to form Superion. Side of the box, you get some of the 13 primes. The other side, you get a nice artwork of Superion. Top of the box, Transformers, Aerialbot, Silverbolt, and you get the 13 primes. And the bottom, warning words and stuff. So that is a look at the box. And here is a look at Silverbolt in his robot mode, along with the parts forming pieces for Superion. But first, let's go over the instructions really quick. And because this one does have the parts forming pieces for Superion, this is a much bigger sheet here, front and back. And of course, it shows you the instructions how to transform Silverbolt, which is actually pretty fun and easy, very intuitive, and showing you all the parts forming pieces to form the armored shield. And back here, it's showing you how to disassemble and assemble the parts forming pieces to form Superion. So this is a really big fold-up sheet, and like I said many times, I wish they would just, do the booklet style. It's so much easier to work with. But that's a look at the instructions. And now let's go over these parts. So first, let's just start with the parts forming pieces for Superion. So here you could see this is his chest piece already all folded up, ready to attach here to form the shield gun. And then here are the other parts forming pieces, the legs and arms for Superion. And to attach that, you just need to make sure you have the legs here orientated so the little slots are on the back, and then they do attach to the tabs here. There's the ones on the top and the bottom. It attaches to the bottom. So basically you just line these tabs up to the bottom, and after you get them lined up, you tab it in, give it a good squeeze, and make sure you have these legs down here attached. And then you can take his gun, Superion's gun, and you could see how it's a little gray piece here showing you this is where it attaches up here. And this doesn't really stay tabbed in very well. It's just relying on thick tabs with paint to kind of keep it in place. So you just have to be a little careful with it. And after you did all of that, now you have this shield gun with made out of the parts forming pieces for Superion. And I just want to share my thoughts when I think about these things, why Hasbro does this. I look at this like, you know, when we were kids and when you got these toys, you used to play with them and make up stuff. So I think that's kind of what they're doing here is, you know, they're taking these parts and putting them together to make up something. And here you could see that this does not stay tabbed in very securely. Like I said, you need to kind of be careful with it. And then you can have Silverbolt back here shooting with this shield protector. So this is just something you could do with the parts forming pieces. And now let's take a closer look at Silverbolt. And you could see that this version here is definitely a little bit more tune accurate than their first version. So with that, let's compare this with the animation model, and you could see that they did a nice job capturing the toon aesthetics, the shape, how bulky and boxy he is, and the colors. You know, maybe this is a little bit too orange, maybe it should be a little yellow, but overall, you know, even the shoulders here with the wings, yeah, they did a nice job capturing the toon aesthetics. But the back, yeah, that's understandable. Not really toon accurate because, you know, you have to make this figure transform. But overall, I think they did a nice job. And so for comparisons, let's first bring out the previous version, the Combiner Wars. And I'm just gonna share my thoughts, just, you know, everything I noticed, the differences between the two. First of all, this is Hasbro. I did get the Takata Unite version, and with Hasbro there's always little things that I don't like, such as his shoulders here. They're not this gray or silver for the wings, but you know, overall I think, you know, for a mainline retail, I think it's nice. And here's his gun, and this is a really long gun. It just looks a little funny to me. But yeah, here you could see the difference between the two. And some other differences I want to point out is the older figures back in the day, they did not give you, you know, the ankle rockers. So sometimes they had trouble standing. And now we do get the nice ankle rockers, which helps with the balance and stability. But here is a look at the Combiner Wars. And yeah, because I don't like the decal that Hasbro gives us, I did get the Takata Unite Warriors version, and you could see the difference now. The color of the yellow is a little bit more accurate to the cartoon, and he does have the silver wings on his shoulders to be more toon accurate, and there is a little bit of extra color here which is on the knees, which is more accurate to the cartoon. So my point is, you know, Takata always does a much better job capturing the toon aesthetics than Hasbro. But here is a look at the comparison with the previous version. And just for the heck of it, here is a look at the Precious. So here he is next to the original G1, and this one doesn't stand very well. He doesn't have the heels. You could see this one does have heels to help him stand. But yeah, some of the difference, typical G1, there's always things off with the toy and the cartoon, or from the cartoon to the toy. But you know, there's still some nice things about the original G1. Here it has that nice chrome gold on his arms and legs, and it has a typical sticker decals, which are very typical of the original G1. So here is a look at the G1, and now let's compare him next to the other two aerial bots that we got. So here he is next to Air Raid and Slingshot. And I have to be honest and tell you, I'm really excited for this. Really looking forward to Air Raid and Fireflight, because this is going to be a really nice set. I know people have different opinions and stuff, but I'm telling you, I actually really like this. And you know, this is not a masterpiece, so there's always going to be things off, such as, you know, the little gaps that people complain about, which hopefully I made it clear that there's nothing really to complain about, because this is not a masterpiece. These are mainline retail figures, so it's meant to be that way. And the big positive with these figures is that these are really fun to play with. They're easy to transform. It's very intuitive. Unlike the masterpiece, it takes a long time to transform and it's very intricate. And you know, so I'm just again pointing out the differences. So here he is next to the other two area bots. And for one more comparison, let's bring out his nemesis. So here he is next to their Motor Master, and you could see these two scale pretty well next to each other. So you can pretend like these two are fighting. I'm just letting you know, this is how I'm going to keep them as individual robot modes, because as far as combined mode for Superion, I'm gonna have fun, you know, transforming it to Superion, but I'm using the KO oversize of the Combiner Wars Superion, because he's really tall and that scales really well with the War for Cybertron Omega Supreme. So with that, now let's zoom in and take a closer look at the figure. So first, let's take a nice look at the nicely sculpted head. There's always little nitpicky things I have. I wish they didn't use the silver. I wish they would use the gray to capture more of the toon aesthetics. But the head is on a ball joint, so it can, you know, go up and down, side to side, all around. And then the shoulders, you could see how they articulate. They go forward, back, out to the side. No butterfly joint, but you do get bicep swivel. You do get a elbow joint, and the hand you can kind of tuck down a little if you want, but that's for transformation. And this is cool for a boxy figure. You do get waist rotation, but no ab crunch. And then you do get these hip skirts that can go forward and back due to transformation. Those are supposed to be the wheels for the alt mode. And then you get a nice clickety ratchet for the legs going forward and back. And then it has friction going out to the side. You do get thigh rotation. You do get a knee bend. Actually, you can get a double jointed knee bend. That's also due to the transformation. And then the feet, they can go up, yeah, but it can't go back. And you do get, like I already said, the needed ankle rocker for, you know, extra balance and stability support. So good amount of articulation. And then you can, you know, articulate these wings if you want, which kind of helps with the articulation for the shoulder. So overall, like I said, I really like this figure, and I'm putting it in the context. This is a mainline retail figure, and when I'm judging it based on that, there's a lot of things I really like. You know, it does capture the toon aesthetics. I didn't say this, but this is still kind of like a fusion between the cartoon aesthetics and the stylized version, because you could see there is extra sculpted detail here that doesn't appear in the cartoon. but you know, it does look nice, and you know, even though it's not 100% tune accurate, it still does a really nice job capturing the tune aesthetics. And then his gun here's a little nitpicky thing I have. It doesn't really capture that signature Silverbolt gun because these wings are kind of like small. They should be a little bit bigger. But again, I think this has to do with the fact that, you know, this is a toy and these are targeted for the kids, so they purposely sculpt and shape things to accommodate for the kids. These are not collectible toys like a masterpiece. But anyways, here's a look at Silverbolt, and now let's transform him to his alt mode and take a look at that. Okay, to transform Silverbolt to his alt mode, first remove the accessories. Now we have Silverbolt in his alt mode, and now let's compare this with the animation model, and you could see they did a nice job capturing the tune aesthetics. The shape of this one is definitely more accurate to the cartoon than the previous Combiner Wars or the Takata Unite Warriors version. So you could see this is really nice. And when you want to put him to the ground, he does have landing wheels, so you bring down these hip skirts, and then his head, Superion's head, there's a little nub here you can use to bring down the front wheels, which just goes down 90 degrees. And then we have Silverbolt in his alt mode with the landing wheels, and yeah, this is actually a really nice figure. And for some comparisons, let's bring out the Combiner Wars, and here you could see what these two look like. Let's come down a little bit so we can get a better view, and you could see the differences between these two. And let's bring out the Takata Unite Warriors version, and here you could see the difference. Let's just compare it with the Takata, since the Takata, in my opinion, looks better than the Hasbro with just the color decals. But yeah, you could see back in the day, the older versions, even though it's stylized, look, it does have a really nice angular shape, which is cool. And this one obviously is more tune accurate. So yeah, both of these actually look really nice. But this one, I think the newer figures are made much better. It's more durable, thicker, stronger plastic. And then for another comparison, let's bring out the original G1 so you could see what he looks like next to the Precious. And yeah, this one definitely looks more like the cartoon, and typical G1, there's always things off here and there. So there's a look at some comparisons. And for one more comparison, let's bring out Slingshot and Air Raid. So here you could see what Silverbolt looks like next to the other two aerial bots. And now we really need the last two aerial bots, Fireflight and Air Raid, and this will complete the set for the aerial bots. So here you could see what these guys look like next to each other. I think that scales really nice, and they actually do look really nice together. So I'm actually really impressed with this set. So now let's take these guys aside and bring the parts forming pieces for Superion, and then show you the combined alt mode, so you could see what that looks like. Okay, to combine Silverbolt to his parts forming pieces, and now we have Silverbolt, I don't know what you call this, in this combined spaceship mode. You know, I'm trying to be as objective as I can and trying to appreciate the positive aspects of this. You know, I think it's kind of cool. First of all, you know, Hasbro does their things where they're trying to make up things to incorporate it, such as, you know, places to tab in the gun. So they're doing the same thing here with these combining pieces to make up something that they're calling like a spaceship, kind of like a I'm gonna be like everyone else, making all kinds of names for this. It's kind of like a frying pan, or kind of like a spaceship, or kind of like a modified Millennium Falcon ship. But either way, you know, trying to be objective, you know, it's a cool little thing that they, you know, did to, you know, just make this look like something that this figure can do. But anyways, here is a look at this combined mode piece. It's not bad. Just trying to get a nice look around, because I'm not going to have it in this mode ever again, so you could see what this looks like. You know, trying to be objective again, it does look nice. I mean, it's not anything we see in the cartoon or would expect, but yeah, it is what it is. So this is what he looks like in his combined alt mode. And last, let's go ahead and transform Silverbolt to his combined mode for Superion. And here is a look at Superion without the aerial bots attached to the limbs. And I'm going to do my full review for Superion after I get the other two aerial bots, because it just makes more sense that way. It doesn't make sense to do a partial review of Superion. So it's this kind of like what MGO usually does. It just makes more sense to show you the review for the combined mode after you get all of the combining pieces. But the most important thing is just to go over just the parts that comes with Silverbolt, which is the parts forming pieces to form Superion. And you don't really need to go over the transformation guide, how to assemble this, because this is pretty intuitive and it's actually pretty fun and easy putting it together. The only thing is just being aware of little things here and there, such as, you know, this is a double hinge here for the tail of the wing, and you need to know that the tolerance is a little tight, and you know how to properly manipulate it so you have room to get this tabbed in. And then little things here like it doesn't stay angled out, it does actually come all the way flat straight, so little things like that. But overall this is, you know, pretty easy to figure out, and it's actually really fun transforming it and putting it all together. So just want to make my case that you don't really need the transformation guide for figures like this. And for those people who, you know, criticize these things like, you know, the little gaps here and there, you know, lack of paint here, I just want to point out that this is not a masterpiece figure like Fans Toys version. This is a mainline retail figure. It's targeted for the kids. This is basically a toy. So, you know, it's understandable why, you know, there are things here and there that just doesn't meet their expectations, because it doesn't make sense. This is not a masterpiece. You should expect what you should expect for a mainline retail figure. And because this is targeted for the kids, you know, this is very durable. You could be rough with it without any worries of breakage. But the most important thing is, you know, it does have, you know, some nice features such as ankle tilt. So it has good stability here. It's very firm, very solid. And overall, just looking at it, this actually looks really, really good in my opinion. I think they did a really nice job. And I'm really excited for the other two aerial bots to finally complete this set. But like I said, this is not going to be my Superion with my mainline retail collection, because that one I'm going to use the KO Oversized Combiner Wars Superion, because he just scales better with the War for Cybertron Omega. And these are actually going to be as my individual aerial bots in robot mode. So with that, I'm just going to end my review here and just tell you that this is really a nice figure. And I'm really looking forward to the final two. So I don't know who's actually getting this, because, you know, I heard some people criticizing and complaining about it, saying, you know, this and that, so that's why they're not going to get it. Well, I'll just tell you, I think you're missing out, because this actually is a really nice figure. But, you know, that's all just personal preference. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions. But for me, I'm letting you know, I really like this figure. This is a nice figure. I'm looking forward to completing the set. And then once we get the other two aerial bots, I'll do my full review of Superion there. So that's it. That's my final review for the Age of the Primes Silverbolt.
I am Vector Sigma. Before Cybertron was, I was. Who reactivates me?
I used to be a courier ship, but now I think I'm Silverbolt.